The Columbia Journalism Award is the school's highest honor. It is voted on by faculty for, quote, singular journalistic performance in the public interest. It is presented annually to someone of capacious accomplishment and distinguished service to journalism, and has been presented each year since 1958 to people including David Halberstam, Ben Bradley, Walter Cronkite, Alan Rusbridger, Maria Ressa, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Marty Barron, and Kathy Gannon, just to name a few. This year, the award is being presented to Christiane Amanpour. And I also have to tell you that Christiane is doing double duty today, because not only is she a recipient of the Columbia Journalism Award, she is the parent of a newly minted Columbia graduate. Her son Darius graduated from the college this morning, so congratulations to him. Ms. Amanpour is CNN's chief international anchor and the host of the network's award-winning flagship global affairs program, Amanpour, in London, which also airs on PBS in the United States. Her illustrious career in journalism spans more than 3 decades, joining CNN in 1983. She rose through the organization, becoming the network's leading international correspondent, reporting on international crises, and has interviewed most of the top world leaders. She's received every major broadcast award, including 14 news and documentary Emmys, 4 Peabody Awards, 2 George Polk Awards, 3 DuPont Columbia Awards, the Courage in Journalism Award, and 10 honorary degrees. She was inducted into the Cable Hall of Fame, Broadcast and Cable Hall of Fame, the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame, and she is the commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire and an honorary citizen of Sarajevo. She is a graduate of the University of Rhode Island. We could literally spend the rest of our time listing her accolades, but it is my great pleasure to introduce Christiane Amanpour, this year's recipient of the Columbia Journalism Award.
Thank you so much, Dean Jelani Cobb, and thank you to all of you who have invited me to accept this award and also to address you graduating students. Yes, I was out in the wonderful, beautiful, fabulous courtyard, I don't even know how you say it, but the quad. And I noticed that you in the J School gave a huge and wonderful cheer when you got your acknowledgement and your degrees. And I'm really happy that you are so happy, because as Jelani Cobb just said, it's time to get to work, and your enthusiasm is really going to be needed to help correct the world that we and our forefathers have left for you, the screw-ups that we have created that you now have to correct. That's a great challenge. Journalism is a public service first and foremost. Journalism is about the truth first and foremost. I am especially delighted to be only the second CNNer to have this privilege after Peter Arnett in 1991. The hero of the Gulf War coverage behind US enemy lines. CNN catapulted onto the global stage and into everyone's consciousness during the Gulf War, and it was my first major proper assignment as a foreign correspondent as well. And as Jelani said, this year marks my 40th year at CNN, climbing the ranks from entry-level international desk assistant to this stage here today. I'm exhilarated by the experience of helping fuel that rocket ship Ted Turner built, the little startup known back then as Chicken Noodle News. Ever since, I have worked my hardest to service, defend, and protect it. So I want you to know that all the wonderful correspondents, producers, camera crews who risk their lives and just about everything else bringing you the world, they are who define CNN the most. Not panelists and talking heads or town halls. It never was and it never will be. It is you who will be the storytellers and the truth seekers. CNN's brand of merry warriors also, who sought to make a better world, a better place. They all define CNN. And I cannot help but remembering, or rather recalling at this moment, that the biggest cheer at the graduation commencement ceremony today, when the president was conferring honorary degrees, went to a fellow journalist, Bob Woodward. That was a fabulous moment. He and his partner and his newspaper, the Washington Post, changed the world and inspired generations of journalists such as myself, such as you. I hope all of you, or at least many, many of you, will pledge yourselves to a career of field reporting, because now, more than ever, we need that connection with reality and the empirical body of facts and evidence that must inform our dispatches to our audience, our constituents. So let me just go back to the beginning and start by quoting this for you. To act upon one's convictions while others wait, to create a positive force in a world where cynics abound, to provide information to people where it wasn't available before, to offer those who wanted a choice, for the cable industry, whose pioneering spirit caused this great step forward in communications, and for those employees of Turner Broadcasting, whose total commitment to their company has brought us together today. I dedicate the news channel for America, the Cable News Network. Now that was Ted Turner, June 1st, 1980, 43 years ago, as he created the 20th century media revolution. 5 years later, he made CNN the news channel for the world. He sent it global. And that short dedication has everything in it. Get up and go, do the right thing, purpose and mission, offering choice, seeking truth. It marked also that brave new world industry, the cable industry. That's what America is all about, innovation. And a company with employees who are all in. I've been all in from the moment I hopped on the Ted Turner bandwagon. Ted's other great admonition was to lead, follow, or get out of the way. I chose to follow and learn for as long as I could and for as long as it took until I gained the experience to lead. As chief international correspondent for more than 20 years, to lead myself and my team on a mission to tell stories that would try and create a relationship between our world and our audience so that everybody would not just know, but also care, and then try to also make sure that we do continue to really, really, really protect our world. To expose the injustices, the inequities, the human rights abuses, and to give the voiceless their chance to be seen and heard, and especially to speak truth to power. To hold the powerful accountable is not just a slogan, it is vital, and when we do it well, it makes a huge difference, and when we don't, it makes an equal but opposite difference. I was advised early on to find my voice, and once I figured out what that meant, I did. And for better or for worse, I've always opted to speak out when staying silent might have been easier. I visited Ted Turner in Georgia just a few weeks ago, and I asked him about all the ways he was ahead of the curve, and not just in the media, but leading on climate change and on the environment and on conservation, private philanthropy, bringing superpowers together at the height of the Cold War with his goodwill games, and then, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, creating a bipartisan organization known as NTI, the Nuclear Threat Initiative, to corral loose nukes. I wanted to know what motivated him, and he told me he always tried to do the right thing. Simple enough, but not easy. So right now, in this moment, for me personally, I want to do what's right and empathize with and acknowledge all those who need to trust us at CNN, the most trusted name in news. I understand that the town hall a week ago was for many an earthquake. And indeed, because I'm a reporter, before I came here today, I'd come from London, I met with CNN CEO Chris Licht at our New York headquarters, and he said the same thing, that it was an earthquake, but for slightly different reasons, and I'll go into them. I wanted to hear from him firsthand what he had been thinking. We had a very robust exchange of views, and he wanted me to know that he welcomed that exchange of views. And I feel, and I said to him, that this always is a good thing to do. After-action reports are great, and we both agreed that to figure out what may or may not have gone right or wrong is essential for knowing how to do it in the future. There will be many more town halls in this political season. Let's take two of the main issues. My management believes they did the right thing, a service to the American people. Some reports have written about important new thoughts and things that we learned from Trump's very mouth that night. As for Chris Licht's earthquake comment, time could very well prove that Trump's electroshock therapy to the world jolts the undecided into greater awareness. For me, of course, the fact that the American people voted 3 times against Trump and Trumpism, 2018, 2020, 2022, also speaks volumes. We've done our duty, we have told the story, we have put that in everybody's awareness, and people have had the opportunity to make their choices, and they have done. I still respectfully disagree with allowing Donald Trump to appear in that particular format. We're all grown-ups, of course, and we can hold differing opinions without a great big blow-up. We know Trump and his tendencies. Everyone does. He just seizes the stage and dominates. No matter how much flack the moderator tries to aim at the incoming, it doesn't often work. For me, I would have dropped the mic at nasty person, but then that's me. I've been in the ring for a long time with many of these people. Since we're speaking at your graduation, though, and you're going to have to deal with this stuff potentially in the future, I think this is all a very well-timed, practical masterclass. So in this case, what could have been done better? What would you do if you had been the decider? Your own Columbia Journalism Review a few weeks ago addressed precisely this issue, concluding that the American press, and maybe the world's press, still hasn't learned how to deal with or cover Donald Trump. Maybe we should revert back to the newspaper editors and TV chiefs of the 1950s, who in the end refused to allow McCarthyism onto their pages unless his foul lies, his witch hunts, and his rants reached the basic evidence level required in a court of law. His influence gradually decreased with all but his fervent cliques and cults. So maybe less is more, maybe live is not always right, which brings us to the second most talked about problem, the invited audience. Quite apart from their demographic, I believe it is our home, and therefore there is plenty of town hall and presidential and other televised debate precedent to insist that our invited guests behave themselves. No hooting, no hollering, no jeering, no cheering. Chris Licht told me he agrees that the execution was lacking a little, and that, I am sure, we will not witness that same appalling behavior in future town halls. Today, I can only hope that your trust in us might have been shaken but not shattered. That you believe we can survive and rebuild that trust, and that most importantly, you will continue to see and know that we are still the only network that brings you the world, as we have done over the past 43 years. CNN is full of the most talented and dedicated colleagues. Overseas, as I said, we have literally put our lives and everything else on the line to be your and everybody's eyes and ears. Again, it doesn't mean we always get everything right, especially in the chaos of our current media landscape. So here's another practical lesson or a reminder. Ted Turner always said, "The news is the star." Back in January 1991, when the United States went to war against Saddam Hussein and the first Gulf War started, the Pentagon wanted all the press, certainly the US press, but all the press out of Iraq as they rained down their cruise missiles. Ted Turner, our boss, told CNN that anybody who wanted to leave could, but that the network was staying in the tyrant Saddam Hussein's Iraq in order to cover the news. Also in Fidel Castro's Cuba, also in the Kim's North Korea, also in the Ayatollah's Iran. We always do that. I have done all that. Yes, of course, if you're a journalist, you want to interview all these people, face-to-face, one-on-one, mano a mano, armed and equipped with experience and the clear knowledge of who and what you're dealing with. In this case, and in the future, along this 2024 presidential campaign, one man's well-trodden, globally known disinformation and propaganda machine, and one who has sought, of course, to overturn and overthrow the legitimately elected government of the United States. Some of the very best and even most fiery, compelling interviews are in fact taped. And they are edited not to change the context or the content or the truth or the intent, but to edit for filibuster and a stream of disinformation. Widening out a little, I also want you to digest this. It is my mantra, and I've learned it through bitter experience in the field. Be truthful, but not neutral. Both-siderism, on the one hand, on the other hand, is not always objectivity. It does not get you to the truth. Drawing false, moral, or factual equivalence is neither objective or truthful. Objectivity is our golden rule, and it is in weighing all the sides and all the evidence, hearing everyone, reporting everything, but not rushing to equate them when there is no equating. And look at the damage that that has done in the climate debate, in the political arena, and in the field of battle. As I said, this is a lesson I learned back in the 1990s covering the Bosnian War, and it has stayed with me ever since. Coming up against the most formidable propaganda and fake news machine that I'd ever encountered, weaponized by Serbia's dictator Slobodan Milosevic. And I remember, because I saw it and I reported it, as did all my colleagues, and we put it on the television, and we put it in all the radios, and we put it on all the front pages of all the great newspapers and news organizations of the world. And yet, we kept seeing this terrible destruction and death, the genocide and ethnic cleansing of civilians, because it was in part enabled by our leaders who would not intervene and falsely accused all sides of being equally guilty. This is another important inflection point for me when I speak to groups like you, because the fact that we journalists were there helped make it impossible eventually for our democratic leaders espousing the highest values known to humanity to keep turning away as one massacre followed the next, until Srebrenica, when 8,000 Muslim men and boys were slaughtered by Slobodan Milosevic and the Serbians who he backed. We refused then to equate aggressor and victim. We kept these stories on the front pages. And in the end, the United States did lead a coalition to end it. And within less than 2 weeks, the bullies had folded. And America then led the diplomatic process to end the war. And there has been peace ever since. It is not perfect, but it exists. Fortunately, That lesson of fuzzy morality back then has been learned today in our worlds, immediately recognizing democratic Ukraine is the victim of Russian imperialist illegal aggression. Based on all these years of work and experience, let me say, having said all that I still love this job, this craft, this profession, this activism, this responsibility, this community, and this sense of purpose and mission. I still do believe that when we do it well, we can be a force for change and improvement in the world. More and more, I believe this profession is also a vehicle for advancing human rights and democracy and defending both. Maybe some of you will choose to become investigative reporters, whistleblowers, and warriors for truth, like those who've exposed everything from the torture by American forces at Abu Ghraib in Iraq, to the torture, rape, and murder of Ukrainian civilians by Russian forces, and everything in between. Not to mention, as I earlier mentioned, Woodward and Bernstein's service in exposing a previous president's lies and corruption and leading to his resignation. Anyone who knows anything about the Vietnam War knows the name Daniel Ellsberg, the patron saint of whistleblowers, who leaked the Pentagon Papers in 1972, and this exposed the official lies upon which the United States had built its case for war. It helped bring that war to an end. He is 92 years old right now and terminally ill, but he gave me a sort of farewell interview a few weeks ago. Of all his courageous reminiscences, the act that stood out to me was about what he wanted to teach his children, and I suppose future generations. He told me, and I'm quoting, "My son was 13 at the time, and I had gotten him to read Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience, to understand the need sometimes to say no to authority, political authority. And I wanted him to see that what I was doing was straightforward, as he would be told I was crazy or that I was a traitor. I was doing this because I thought it was the right thing to do, and I wanted to plant the issue in the kids' minds, where it did take hold, that there were times when they might have to expose themselves to danger or even prison to do the right thing and to save other people's lives. This is an amazing masterclass in courage and conscience. We must always consider how far we're willing to push boundaries. I have pushed them to the limit. When you least expect it, all of you will be required not just to demonstrate physical courage, but moral courage. When whistleblowers, when journalists are not there or they are not listened to, you have the Iraq invasion of 2003, or the non-intervention to stop genocide in places like Rwanda. In my book, the equation is obvious. If good journalists are there, it matters, and it makes our world and people's lives better. If they are not there, it also matters. It just makes our lives worse, and the world worse, and it costs lives. That's actually what keeps me up at night. Not agonizing about the future of journalism and even journalists. News of our death has been endlessly foretold, and yet here we still are, and here you are. There is a 100% connection between a robust, independent, free and fair press and a functioning democracy and the advance of human rights and justice. Dean Jelani Cobb has recently written, "The crisis of American democracy has been facilitated by the crises confronting American journalism. Hindered by declining revenues, a diminished public trust, a shrinking labor force, and the emergence of a sophisticated disinformation ecosystem, the press, as the debates over the COVID vaccines and the 2020 election indicate, has had difficulty convincing many Americans of basic facts." He is right. And yet, I refuse any more to say or to concede that we live in a post-truth world, because that is lazy, and it is ultimately a self-fulfilling prophecy. We need to seek, to provide, and defend the truth. Our motto, like doctors, should be do no harm, and most often we live up to that. But there are also way too many organizations and journalists categorically choosing to do harm. those who have weaponized and monetized rage and grievance and lies, those who have used conflict as economic clickbait, and who have divided our societies and polarized people and have attempted here and around the world also to polarize the journalists and force them to take sides. I'd like here again to refer to the to the CJR. A recent report pointed out how often the tabloid and other populist press reports on anything from climate to refugees to welfare recipients by demonizing them and lying about them. This in turn softens up the ground necessary to turn citizens against them, thus providing politicians with better cover to enact often heartless and destructive, cruel policies. How we cover the world and our local situations influences policy. Now, an even more dangerous force is about AI, artificial intelligence. We all know the levels of fake and imitation that can achieve, and the Pope in a white down puffer jacket is the least of it. Of course, it would be great if AI could create peace between Israel and Palestine, for instance, end Russia's war, solve climate change, feed the world. It won't. Experts I'm speaking to warn, with no regulation as AI speeds down the highway of possibility, the majority of resources are going towards making it more capable, not more safe, not into trying to align the technology with values. This is important to understand because we must all fight against it. It's a looming and an actual catastrophe. Now, on the walls of the headquarters of the BBC in London are engraved these words by George Orwell. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And I want you all to digest that. Of course, the President, Lee Bollinger, did talk about that in commencement today. There is way plenty of censorship coming from Russia, China, all over the world. We cannot and must not censor ourselves. And finally, I was electrified yesterday at the 2023 class day where my son graduated and where I congratulate every single person who is passing out this year. I was electrified by their keynote speaker, the Pulitzer and Olivier-winning playwright Katori Hall, class of '03. Everything she said made me tingle, but I wrote this down to share with you, you journalists, you people about to forge your own paths. She said, "Don't ever come up missing in your own mirror. Your reflection demands to be seen. It is therefore our responsibility, and soon now your responsibility, to double down, to keep seeking and speaking the truth. It is still possible, as I said, despite all the formidable forces arrayed against us. What you must always seek are the facts. What you must do is be there on the issues that you want to talk about. Go there to the stories that you need to cover. You have to be the eyes and ears of everyone, everybody at home. And remember, it's not nothing. Civilization itself was built by the storytellers. Go new journalists!"
I was supposed to give this to Christiane. I kind of like, in the midst of announcing that she got the award, I never actually gave her the award. So I'm going to give her the award now.